We recently finished the first week of the Easter season and are about halfway through the second week of the Easter season. With this in mind, I would like to put forward some brief words of encouragement that are based on or related to the major themes of this time of the liturgical year. On the night before Easter, the Church celebrates the Easter Vigil Mass, a Mass celebrated in anticipation of the rising of Jesus the next day. At the start of the Easter Vigil Mass, the Church is in complete darkness. That symbolically represents Christ being in the tomb. Yet just outside of the church, a bonfire is lit, and from this, a large candle, known as the Paschal Candle or the Easter Candle, is lit. Those leading the Mass then process towards the altar, where the Paschal Candle is blessed with incense, and a lengthy chant known as the Exultet is sung, which meditates upon the nature of Christ's resurrection. Usually this song is sung by a priest or deacon, though it can be sung by a layperson. After a lengthy series of readings derived from various parts of the Old Testament, which are seen as prophesying Jesus' death and resurrection, the Gloria is sung, at which point all of the lights in the church are turned on. This represents the light of Christ's resurrection entering into the world. All of this is, in turn, followed by the reading of one of the New Testament letters and the Gospel account of Jesus' resurrection. After the sermon, any candidate for baptism or confirmation is then initiated into the church, and the Mass ends with the Eucharistic prayers and the final blessing from the celebrant. Now, when the Paschal Candle is first lit, the shape of a cross is carved into it. During this, the priest says the following prayer: Christ yesterday and today, the Alpha and the Omega. All times belong to him, and all ages. To him be glory and power through every age and forever. One of the very first major blessings of the Easter Vigil is an affirmation of Christ's authority over all creation, and how all of creation ultimately belongs to God. Christ's authority is expressed in a profound way through the resurrection. You see, most people treat death like a brute fact, an inevitability, as if it was something that has authority, since all of life is seen as a constant march towards death. Most people are afraid of death, but they eventually learn to cope with this fear and eventually come to see death, like every other bodily function, as something neutral and inevitable. In the Bible, in the teachings of the Church, and in the teachings of the saints, theologians, and mystics, death is presented as something with negative spiritual connotations, since death is seen both as a symbol for and an expression of the corruption that the human race faces as a result of sin. But it is still seen as an inevitability, as something that entraps man. No one comes back from death. Therefore, it is easy to personify death as a dictator with an iron grip on man. What makes the Christian narrative unique is the view that Christ not only died, but also rose from the dead. That which is an unavoidable inevitability, that which life inevitably and constantly moves towards, Christ defeated. He, as the Exultet says, quote, broke the prison bars of death, unquote. What the resurrection points towards is how all of creation, even that which represents the decomposition or destruction of creation, is subject to the authority of Christ. That is why Easter is a joyous time. In Easter, we celebrate that which is the source of our hope. In rising from the dead, Christ proved to be more powerful than anything, even death. As you grow in the spiritual life, you should fear nothing. You will inevitably face hardships. You will inevitably face things that make you scared. But don't let that shake you to your core. For the faithful, the fact that they have the risen Lord on their side should be a source of immeasurable courage and boldness. Think about it this way. What are you fighting against? You're fighting against sin. You're fighting against temptation. You're fighting against the devil. You're fighting against bad people. You're fighting against hardships. But also ask yourself this: who is giving you the strength to confront all of this? The answer? It's the one who has authority and power over life and death itself. It is one who literally came back from the realm of the dead. It is one so powerful that not even the forces of sin and death can keep him down. It is one so powerful that even in the act of subjecting himself to sin and death, he can defeat sin and death. Yet the same fact should also be the source of immense moral vigilance. Think about it this way. Jesus, by rising from the dead, also liberated us from sin and death. We are free. That is why one of the readings for the Easter Vigil is taken from the book of Exodus. Just as God freed the Jews from literal slavery and oppression, God, through the death and resurrection of his only begotten Son, has freed us from the spiritual slavery of sin. Just as God destroyed the Egyptians in the Red Sea, so too God has destroyed sin and our old selves in the waters of baptism, whereby the effects of Christ's death and resurrection are first applied to us. If one has been freed from slavery, but uses this freedom to do evil, or to laze around and do nothing all day, are they making good use of the gift of freedom that they have been given? Of course not. Do not misuse the freedom won for you by Christ to do evil and therefore fall back into spiritual slavery. Essentially, I'd like to leave you with this thought. The resurrection is a reality. We as Christians believe that it's a reality. Now, let us start acting like this is the case.